Hi, I'm Eve Young, Jerusalem Post economics and domestic affairs correspondent, here in the studio today with Tal Raviv, who, among many other things, also makes really interesting Hasbara. But before we dive into anything else that we should know about you
My name is Tal. I made Aliyah 12 years ago
from
from the US. And oftentimes if people recognize me on the street, it says Megaphone Man.
Thank you for protecting my neighbors, my family, and my friends.
Megaphone, really?
Megaphone
People
Man.
actually say that? Megaphone Man?
Well, it's Tal from Instagram, but...
Okay, the reason that I initially wanted to have this conversation, write an article about you, is because something I found really interesting in your Hasbara. Personally, I have to say I don't connect to a lot of Hasbara. I find it to be incredibly abrasive, not nuanced, one-sided, just very much and this is why we're right and this is why you should be on our side and go with us. And I felt like a lot of the stuff you were posting, it wasn't like that.
I also don't connect to a lot of Hasbara. In the US, I grew up in the Zionist youth movement. I went to all the Jewish summer camps, and I was the high school student writing letters to the editor. Anytime there was a mistake about Israel, I was really into it. And here I am, made Aliyah. And when I see, maybe especially after moving here, living here, and you see the public diplomacy materials, you're just that's lacking. There's a lot of nuance, and also. I don't know, as a millennial American young person, you're just this isn't gonna speak to anybody that's in my friend circles. Who is this targeted for, aside from preaching to the choir?
Yeah.
I think it's just how do I say this? When I found myself making videos after October 7th, when I switched to English, in my mind I was thinking about a few specific people. Both that were Jewish or non-Jewish in the US that were very reasonable people, but wouldn't see what I see being here. And there's a lot of things that I realized I should focus on the common denominator that we have, which is liberal values. And when I say liberal, I mean capital L, 19th century, right? Those kind of values. And yeah, just in general, if I just say hey, we're right, the other side is terrible, that's not gonna win me any credibility. Nobody's gonna want to hear what else I have to say. And instead I wanted to just focus on the humanity, the actual experience, and the very weird contradictions, very difficult contradictions that when you are a liberal, person living in Israel, actually having to deal with these rockets and worse, and war, and these things are very, very real.
What's been holding you back from, you haven't had a normal kind of Hasbara video out in a while?
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
So take a step back. The only reason I make videos is I make zero money from them, zero obligation, right? It's just, it all started to help me process stuff going on around me that I couldn't reconcile, or couldn't reconcile what I'm hearing in the news and what I see from people. And so if I have a video kind of bubbling up inside of me, it's usually because I'm trying to process some dissonance. And I think I had this feeling that everything that can be said has been said. The facts are out there. There's other amazing people sharing facts on a regular basis. They do, more a news kind of Hasbara news kind of accounts. There's the online world and there's the offline world. So in the online world, everybody is very extreme. It's either the caricature, purple-haired, person protesting and occupying the Columbia Library, or right somebody who's Israel can do no wrong on the other side.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of room. The first time I took a trip outside of Israel after October 7th, I remember this feeling of my fists are up kind of thing, or I'm ready for anything, ready to lie about my name, have a cover story for why my name is Israeli, whatever. And in some places I had a lot of friends that they needed that. Yeah. But in most of my experiences, if I meet people from around the world, they either don't care, have no idea, or are actually pretty humble about their intake of information. And it just kind of relaxed me to realize that like most of the planet is full of reasonable people who either don't care, or if they do care, they understand, like they have the humility around what they know. And then also like what makes it in the news or makes it through social media when you load, what's the first video when you load Instagram? Like it's always
If
going
it
to be
bleeds,
something.
it leads, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yes.
Basically things that give you high blood pressure.
Yeah.
So that's if you take the online world as like the offline world.
So Tal the influencer is telling you guys to log off and go
Yes.
talk to real people in real life.
Delete
Don't
Instagram.
look at his social media.
Yes, if all
or
my
any social media.
Exactly. If everybody that follows me would delete their Instagram, that'd be totally worth it. Amazing. Please do that.
No, don't do that.
Don't.
We need you.
Jerusalem Post needs
the
you.
Jerusalem Post needs you. Okay, so it's been a really long war, and a lot of us in Israel are feeling really tired. And I can't imagine that it's easy to stay moderate in your views on things and your takes on things, in like how you make your videos even. Do you feel like you're managing? Do you feel like it's not, like, do you even see it in that lens? Like,
Yeah, there's a lot to process there. You know, I still feel like I have all the same principles.
mm-hmm.
It's going to sound contradictory. And because everything's just very real and in your face, and like you really think about your security, you know, when I see, you know, another piece of news about a hostage, there's no story I can tell myself why that's not me,
Yeah.
or why that's not going to be me if we don't
Mhm.
solve this. And so when it's like that immediate and practical, I've started to count the principles I'm willing to sacrifice, just because the alternative, because I don't know, I just want to live. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, I just, the alternative is I want to be alive. And I think that's also one of the things that's hardest to communicate to people across the Atlantic or in different continents. It's like, this is a very real thing for people who live here, and for most people who have no choice but to live here. And it's not like, you know, the US fights a war really far away, and if they withdraw or they retreat or they lose or whatever it is, not your day-to-day, you know, doesn't change at all. Here, it's very real. And I think a lot of people, for example, Hasbara, a lot of people just didn't even know that after October 7th, you know, thousands of rockets continued to be fired from all directions on Israel. A lot of people didn't know, you know, that 80,000 residents of the north like were refugees in their own country. A lot of things that I had hoped for in the years, you know, before October 7th.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of assumptions that I was willing to make, or a lot of bets I was willing to make. Part of me still believes those things, but I don't know if it's a risk that I'm willing to take anymore. And so I find myself with, you know, mulling over ideas that have been proposed that like I would have found really distasteful years ago. And it's not from a point of view of my values have changed or anything like that. I think I just feel like it's very real now. It's not like I could tell myself that everything's gonna be fine, we're safe, everybody's secure all the time. We figure that part out.
No, I think that you're describing something that is like very common in Israel. Like, I think you're describing something that's even if people don't feel that they've sobered up, or if people haven't changed their political decisions, political leanings, things have become much more real, much more personal. But like, maybe tell me about how that feels to be contemplating things that you would have found distasteful just a few years ago.
And I think the first time that I heard a bomb go off or a missile siren, or any, you know, Israelis, everybody's had some kind of experience like that. And you realize how few other things function when you're in that state, and how much all these things you cared about, you don't care about. If you were just hungry 5 minutes ago, you're not hungry for the next 5 hours, kind of thing. And I think it's kind of like in that category, you know, it's like this is like a long-term reminder of Maslow's hierarchy, and that we had the luxury of feeling like Israel a few years ago was at the top of the pyramid on so many fronts, and now we're very much at the bottom of the pyramid. And
what do you mean by that? Bottom of the pyramid?
Like, we're just worried about staying alive.
Yeah.
There's like nothing that can reassure anybody in this country, even people in the deep left, right, that they're safe.
Something that you touched on for a second before, you said when you switched to Hebrew in your content, or you switched to English in your content, you were in Hebrew.
Yeah.
So let's go to the Hebrew section now. A lot of your content before October 7th was protest content, was protesting the judicial overhaul, judicial reform. And I also want to talk about how the war has changed kind of that for you. I guess first give us like in a sentence what brought you to be protesting that in the first place, and then where you are today.
Sure. I guess the background is that like I do not see myself as a protester. I know this is going to sound really funny to a lot of people. I don't see myself as a protester. It was never my like identity. Never participated in like political protests. Found politics to be kind of like noisy and.
But you vote.
Yeah, but I vote. Exactly.
I feel like that's like the disclaimer you need to put down.
I
You
vote.
know what I mean? Like I vote. I do.
I vote. That's my politics. I vote. That's where I express myself. I like read a lot, stay informed, and then once in a while, you know, when there's elections, I'll vote, and that's where it ended. And I think it also comes from like this humility of like, okay, cool. There's lots of opinions. I could be wrong. And then in January of 2023, when Yariv Levin announced the judicial reform, for me, the yellow and red lights that went off was like, wait, what about checks and balances? You know, I don't care what party's, you know, in power, that'll change over time, but like there's this like constitutional.
Back to civics class, elementary school, 3 branches of government.
Exactly, yeah. Just back to high school in the US where, you know, the sacred thing is 3 branches of government, checks and balances, and that's like a thing you just take for granted. And then you start realizing like, no, that's easy to change, especially in a country with that, you know, quick Google.
2 branches of government.
2 branches of government, no constitution. Like, and that's for me what really motivated me. I'm like, wait, if we don't have like basic checks and balances, this transcends politics. This is like super clear to me. I started making funny videos in the streets. I don't know how else to deal with it except for like being really loud and trying to be funny.
But I want to jump to where you are now with the protests.
So, I mean, after October 7th, you know, all the protest movements, they all stopped and became aid movements or aid organizations. And
you raised 170,000 shekels through social media and bought a bunch of gear for soldiers and drove it around the country with your friends.
Yeah, we called it 2 dudes in a car.
2 dudes in a car.
An operation, yeah.
That works.
And a PayPal account.
They say that lots of startups don't get off the ground because they can't pick a name. So I'm glad that wasn't a problem at all for you guys.
We had lots of hours in the car
to think about names.
Yeah,
2 dudes in a car.
But, so yeah, the protest movement today.
Yeah.
I don't go to protests today. Right now it's spring 2025. I feel like the protests today, unlike the protests 2 years ago, are more divisive than they are uniting. I think what was beautiful about the protests of 2023 is you could see people from all political parties, all parts of the spectrum. What unified them wasn't their political opinion, it was their liberal values, the, again, capital L, you know, liberal philosophy. And today, it really feels like it's just maybe because there's a lot less enthusiasm or energy because of the war for this kind of thing, that they had to rely on being more and more extreme and calling for more divisive messages. I see posters in Tel Aviv saying, you know, if you vote for them, like, don't call me brother.
Yeah.
I don't think that the same tool that worked in 2023 is the right tool for the job right now.
And where does that leave you as someone who still doesn't like the reform, I assume, if it's about like the need for 3 branches of government that hasn't changed? Where does that leave you as a person who's like, oh, well, I had this tool that I felt was the right one and was working, and now I don't, but I still don't like what's happening? Like,
I'm asking myself that. I know there's a great organization called JPOST that a lot of people are getting involved in, which is kind of creating a consensus document that could, you know, be a draft for a constitution that unifies people that you never expect to see in the same room, talking around tables. You know, it's a beautiful thing. And also just thinking ahead about elections and saying, okay, again, back to like how I used to do politics, which is vote. Who would I vote for? And what's really important to me? And I think my like dream platform, somebody that would show up with a dream platform for me would be not just, hey, let's just not be Bibi, but also, hey, let's fix this constitution thing, or, you know, let's kind of create a a reason and a future for why these like silly, thrashy arguments over how we change the rules or don't change the rules like are a thing of the past.
And
as a voter.
does that feel like that's 2 years away right now, right? How does that feel?
Helpless. And it sucks. And I'm constantly thinking there's got to be a different way. I don't want to just sit back on the couch and like have an excuse, not to do anything. But I think it's also sometimes when you just go ahead and do something without thinking, why is it going to work, or this is the right tool for the job, you can cause more damage than good.
So let's talk about unity for a second, right? Because I think that's a lot of Rivon Raviv, the fourth quarter messaging, right? They're calling for like, let's be together in this. How do we keep that from being hollow or really toothless, or just an excuse to keep a status quo that's really damaging? And also, like, if you don't have the answer, that's a really big question. Maybe like that's fine if you're not.
No,
like, I can solve the unity problem.
No, I think those, I've heard calls for unity that made me roll my eyes.
Yeah.
Because they seem like a thinly veiled, agenda for just I'm right, just go with me. That's I think Rivon Raviv thinks a lot about that, and it's supposed to not come from a particular camp. It's not a political party that's trying to get elected and get salaries from the government or whatever. Like, and I think if they can continue to keep that credibility, like what do they have to gain? What could they possibly have to gain, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I think that they have a better chance than anybody else.
Give us a moment of like hope after this slightly sad, but hopefully with comedic interview.
Oh boy.
Give us like a something hopeful, something that keeps you like centered, hopeful.
Again, it goes back to online and offline. Like, turn off
your smartphones.
Turn off your smartphones
Get
and
off the
Instagram
computer.
after checking the Jerusalem Post account
Post
and stories, and liking and sharing. But after you do that, just like go for a walk, see the people around you, see the faces, see people come from different walks of life. Just think of all the conversations you've had of people who are, building new things, investing in new things, hopeful about the future. Like Israel on the street and in the office and in the like, it doesn't feel like a country that doesn't have hope. It feels like a very energetic country. In practice, people are like, it's kind of like this underlying feeling that like, yeah, this is all temporary. It's going to be great. It's just everybody has this feeling like this. It's been bad in the past. It got good again. It's going to be good again in the future. I think I really feel that. Like, I just really feel that.
All right, Tal, thanks so much.
Thank you.